Hello, lovely people. Welcome to this ultimate 4 episodes video. So today we'll cover from Prologue to part 12. Are you ready? If your answer is yes, let's go!
London lay quiet under a shroud of mist. The street lamps along the Thames flickered faintly, casting wavering halos onto the sleek pavement. The river moved like breath, slow, constant, unknowable. Even the city's usual hum seemed half paused, as if holding itself still for something. On the south bank, a figure walked alone. He was young, no older than 18, but his steps bore the weight of generations. His name was Vic. No entourage followed him, no watchful eyes. He had left them behind in Buckingham Palace, slipping away before the sun had cleared the skyline. Ahead of him, Westminster Bridge stretched into the fog like a memory not yet remembered. Largest cracks on the water, and somewhere a gull called out, sharp and solitary. Vic's hand brushed the railing. Cold, solid, real. He didn't know what he was looking for. Solace, perhaps, or answers, or maybe simply the freedom of breathe like a boy, just once more, before the crown turned him into something else entirely. And then it happened. The light broke. A golden beam lanced through the mist, catching Vic in the face. It was sudden, blinding, almost alive. He staggered back, eyes watering, heart thudding. For a split second, time slowed. The city held its breath. The river stood. And in that pose, he felt it, a presence, ancient, vast, watching. Then, just as swift, it faded. The warmth drained from the light. The world moved on. Vic stood frozen. The echo of that moment pressed like a fingerprint into his soul. Something had seen him. Not just a boy, not just a prince, a king! Far below, where his coat around bones and forgotten vaults, something shifted, a whisper rustled through crypt and cavern. A name, lots of history, breathed itself back into being. The boy had walked the path. Now the path would rise to meet him.
The bells of St. Margaret's tolled 9 as Vic returned to the palace. The final echoes of the Westminster chimes trading off to him like whispers. A light drizzled and begun. Softest breath, speckling his coat and hair. No one noticed his absence, not yet. The great household was already stirring the preparations for the coronation. Each footman stood, buzzing like bees in a hive whose queen had not yet arrived. Vic entered through the side gate. Jenkins, the old knight's porter, gave him a knowing glance but said nothing. The man had served 3 monarchs and had long since mastered the art of science. Vic offered him a nod and disappeared into a maze of corridors beyond. Buckingham Palace was quieter than usual. The long hallways dressed in red and gold carried the ghost scent of lavender and polish. Vic walked past portraits of kings and queens long dead. Each painted gazed a reminder of what waited for him tomorrow. Their eyes seemed to follow him. His chambers were the far end of the east wing, overlooking Green Park. They had been refurbished, made more suitable for a young king, but Vic found the changes sterile. sterile. But Vic found the changes sterile. Gone were the scuffed floorboards of his childhood, the crooked mirror, the pale blue curtains. Now everything gleamed. Mahogany, brass, and velvet. A sort of room one could only breathe in with careful, measured lungs. He sat at the window seat, knees drawn up, and watched the grey clouds drifting above the treetops. His fingers played idly with the chain around his neck. The signet ring of his father hung from it, to go with the Windsor crest edged deep. It was too large for him still. He missed his father most in moments like this. The man had not been warm. He ruled with precision like a chess master, but he had been clear, certain. He'd never seemed afraid. Vic, by contrast, felt a quiet dread curling at the edges of his thoughts. What if he failed? What if he wasn't meant for any of it? The riches, the, s- the sculptures, the sculptures, the addresses in Parliament, the endless row of men and women expecting something divine from a boy who barely understood his own heartbeats. And then there were the dreams. They had begun a month ago, always the same. Darkness, the water, the Thames, but not as it was now. Ancient, swollen, whispering in a tongue not living, then spoke. A shadow rising from beneath its surface on a crown, not the St. Elwo's crown in the Tower, but one of black iron and fire, waiting for him on a throne of stone. He had told no one, not even Mary. A soft knock at the door. Ray startled, turning quickly. Yes? The door cracked open. It was Mary, his cousin and closest friend, bearing a silver tray with tea and a stack of letters. Her records were pinned back, though white rebukes strung over their fault. You vanished again, she said with smallness of malice. I went walking, alone. Would you prefer I had a dozen guards marching behind me? I prefer you alive, especially before tomorrow. She placed the tray on the table and sat opposite him, folding one leg beneath her. Her eyes were clever, storm grey, and rarely missed anything. They glanced at the letters, official seals, invitations, diplomatic overtures. A personal note from the Archbishop. He sighed and looked back out the window. I don't think I'm ready, he said lost. Mary was quiet for a moment. Then, do you think any of them were? Vic did answer. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of thunder rolled low across the city. The dreams returned that night. Vic stood on the banks of the Thames. Though it was not the river he knew, the water's strength they came back, swung beyond their boundaries, licking the stones of an older, darker London. The sky was moonless, and the stars above flickered in a line constellation. A whisper coiled through the mist. Not yet, not yet, but soon. He woke before dawn, heart pounding, fingers clenching, the bed linen as slow holding on the edge of a cliff. The window had blown open in the night. Rain speckled the sill. Later that morning, while the parlors bustled with rehearsal and refinement, Vic slipped out again. This time with purpose. He took no guards, no aids, just a long coat, a scarf, and the feeling that something waited for him. He returned to Westminster Bridge. The mist was thicker than the day before. The river below moved in lazy coils, as though something stirred beneath it. They walked along the embankment till it came to rusted gate, half hidden behind a hoarding, a scaffolding, and construction signs. He had seen it before, long ago, when he was just a boy, trailing behind his father on some forgotten visit. Today, the gate was open. Stone steps descended into darkness. The scent of damp brick and iron filled the air. He hesitated, then pulled a small torch from his pocket, a habit he'd picked up, exploring old cellars had eaten, and clicked it on. Each step echoed, and the echoes did not quite match the rhythm of his feet. He emerged into what appeared into a disguised tunnel, lined with old bricks, blackened by soot and time. The relic of the older systems or perhaps a forgotten part of original embankment construction. But there was something else, symbols etched faintly into the walls, circles within circles, lines like a river paths, and writing, not English, not English. Vic ran his fingers across one of the symbols. It paused faintly beneath his touch. Only for a second. But it was enough. He drew back. A voice echoed behind him. Curiosity, it said, is a dangerous trade in a cave. Vic returned sharply. An old man stood at the base of the stairs, hunched and pale, his eyes glowing faintly blue. He wore a tattered coat and boots that looked older than most buildings in the city. Despite his appearance, his voice, was clear, firm, and ages. "Who are you?" Vic asked. "I'm a keeper," the man replied, "one of the few who remain." "A keeper of what?" "Of what lies beneath," he said. "The things your coronation will awaken, the pacts your ancestor made, the realm beneath the stores of London, and the river, of course, always the river." The tunnel seemed to breathe around him. The tunnel seemed to breathe around them. Vic tried to steady his voice. "Whoosh! Why show yourself to me? Why show yourself to me?" "Because you can, and because you are not ready. But you must be, and quickly." The man reached into his coat and drew something wrapped in clothes. He handed it to Vic. It was heavy, circular, old. Vic unwrapped it carefully. It was a disc made of silver and darkened glass, intricately inscribed. The moment he touched it, a faint hum vibrated through his bones. The feeling was neither pleasant nor painful, only undeniable. "What is it?" they asked. The keeper looked at him with something like sorrow. "A key to a door you must not open until it opens to you." And with that, the man stepped back into the shadows. The light of the torch seemed to bend away from him, and in a moment he was gone. Vic stood alone again, a key in his hands, the whisper of the Thames above him. The river would not keep its secrets for long. The dawn of Coronation Day broke with a strange quiet over London. It was not silence in the usual sense. The bells still rang, the crowds still gathered, the city still hung with expectation. But beneath it all, there was a hush, as if something vast and unseen were watched from the rooftops, from the mist, from the river itself. Vic had not stepped. The disc lay hidden in the lining of his ceremonial coat, its weight oddly balanced over his head, over his heart. No one had questioned its presence. Not even Mary, who had seen at once something had changed in him. He, he had told her nothing, not yet. He didn't have the words for it. The memory of the keeper's voice clung to him like the river mist. "You must not open the door until it opens to you." Senna was from waiting the abbey. The anointing oil had been prepared by ancient rites. Foreign dignitaries sat in carved stools shining with medals. Trumpets roped, scribes practiced 100 times. They could barely feel any of it. But what he did feel, unequivocally, was that something was wrong. He stood in the apse behind the great altar, flanked by 2 guards whose spears gleamed like silver needles. The archbishop adjusted his vestments beside him, murmuring blessing in Latin. Vic's skin prickled as the oil touched his head. Cold at first, then burning faintly, like cinnamon on fire. And then it happened. The candlelight flickered all at once. in perfect rhythm. A tremor moves through the floor, so subtle only they seem to notice. And above them, far off, in the vaulted stone of the abbey, a sound, a single clear chime, not from any bell in Westminster. This sound came from within the walls. We looked up just for a moment. A figure stood among the upper galleries. Not a guest, not a servant. She was clothed in a coat of silver thread, hair white as frost. Her eyes, impossibly bright, looked within his across the vast space. She raised my hand, not in greeting, in warning. In warning. And then she vanished. The Archbishop placed a crown upon Vic's head. The crowd roared, and Vic did not look triumphant. He felt as though he had been mocked. Later that evening, he found Mary in the past library, thumbing through a stack of old documents. She saw her. She said without looking up. He shut the door behind him. You did too? Everyone else was too busy watching the bloody crown. But yes, I saw her, and I've seen her before. Vic stiffened. When? Mary looked up, face pale, eyes shadowed. She's in the portraits, not the official ones, but the ones they never had. From the archives, there's a file they call the unwritten line, sketches forgotten commissions. She appears every few rings, always at coronation, always watching. Vic said nothing for a long time. Then he whispered, do you think she's one of them? Mary nodded slowly. Not ghost, not flesh, something older. A silence passed between them. Then she added, and Vic, she's always saying just before something terrible happens. The House of Commons was unusually quiet. It was Vic's first official address as monarch, not the scripted phrases of a coronation, but the real business of kingship, statecraft, oaths, secrets. Though he held no legislative power in practice, tradition demands his presence at the opening of the new parliament. He was there to observe, to learn, to be watched. From the gallery, they gazed down at the chamber floor, green benches, carved wood, aged leather, and the heads of men and women who seemed infinitely older than him. Some looked up with interest, some with indifference, and one or two with eyes far too dark, as though shadow pulled behind their irises. When the speaker could resist, it was escorted through a series of side corridors, not by his usual aides, but by a pair of unfamiliar officers in grey robes trimmed with black. He asked no questions, though he memorized every turning. They led him through a door he had never seen before, behind a large tapestry of Queen Anne, down a staircase lit with gas labs. The walls grew older, redder, brick, damp at the edges. Eventually, the corridor opened into a small circular chamber. No windows, 12 chairs in a ring, a round table at the center. 11 of chairs were occupied. They stood at the threshold. What is this? One of the figures, a woman with silver streaked hair and a bruise shaved like an oar's, rose from her seat. This is the true council, she said. You have met commons, you have seen the lords, but here, your majesty, is where the realm is truly guarded. We say nothing. He recognized none of the faces, not a single minister, peer, or privy council. And yet, they all looked at him as though they had known him since birth. The woman continued, We are a shadow parliament. We do not govern. We remember. We protect what is ancient. We speak for that which has no voice in daylight. Another man spoke, his face gaunt, eyes grey as the shades. Each monarch is told in time, most do not believe. Some go mad, a few listen. They stare forward slowly. And you expect me to listen? No, said the woman. We expect you to lead. There was a silence. The torchlight flickered. They moved to the table. If you are protectors, then protect. Tell me what you know. About the woman in the abbey. About the symbols beneath the river. About the key I was given. There was a faint stir. One or two figures shifted, startled. You have a key? The straight-eyed man said, voice suddenly taut. We met his gaze inwardly. I do. The woman again folding her hands. Then it was begun, she said. Another man whispered, The vote is singing. And then the straight-eyed man added with the weight of the funeral bell. Soon, your majesty, you will see for yourself what lies beneath Westminster, and you must decide whether to awaken it or bury it forever. It began as all forbidden truths do. In a library, not the modern wing of the Royal Archives, with its index rows and polished cases, but the deep stacks, a section of animals piled stuff didn't know existed. Carved into the bedrock beneath these piles, its air was cool and musty, stinged with iron and the faintest trace of ash. Mary had the keys. She had always known more than she let on. It's not just genealogy. Down here, she said guided. They passed the locked gate of blackened iron. Its memory, everything they couldn't burn or didn't dare. They descended narrow stairs to a vault lined with shelves of cracked leather bindings and screws tied with red twine. Old wax seals, half melted, some books were chained shut. Vague posts before. One shelf marked only with the letter L. What's the exception? He asked. Mary hesitated. legacies. He ran a hand along the spines. One more known title, just a ring of 13 symbols etched into sculptured leather. Another was sent with a crown split in two. Mary selected a slim ledger from a low shelf. Its cover was new, though still decades old. Inside were paintings, unfinished, faded as sketches of monarch who had never been crowned or who had vanished from the record. There was no text, only the faces. And one face in particular, the woman from the abbey, they whispered. Mary nodded. She appears again and again. Same features, sometimes younger, sometimes older, always at a turning point. She's not a ghost, no, she's a reminder. Dick turned the page and gasped. Beneath the portrait of the white-haired woman was another sketch. A battlefield, flaming ruins, black smoke curling above crumbling tower, shapes of flame on the tents. And rising behind it all, a throne of stone empty. What's this? Mary's voice was quiet. It's called the second silence. The what? The forgotten war, a conflict fought not with armies, but with bloodlines and nets. Long before the first Windsor, long before Parliament, that was reckoned between those who ruled the land and those who ruled what lay beneath it. They looked up and wished I won. Mary didn't answer. Instead, she handed him a brittle scroll wrapped into faded velvet. He unfolded it carefully. The ink was submerged, but one phrase stood out in clear Latin. Somewhere's ledger's cordless portai. The blood of the king is the key to the gates. He translated aloud. Mary took a step back. What's that? That's what the keeper meant. Vic said slowly. The key opens a door to something that was sealed during the war. He looks at Mary, and they never told me. Not my father, not the council, no one. She met his gaze. Because the gate is waiting, and the last time it opened, half the city burned. The passage twisted deeper than Vic thought anything in London ought to go. Stone gave way to older stone, black, veined with something metallic and warm to the touch. The torches they carried flickered strangely, as though the fires have hesitated to burn too brightly in this place. Mary was ahead, her steps stopped with certainty. They had followed the markings carved beneath Westminster, a part of forgotten gleams leading away from the sealed vault where the disk had crumbled to ash. But they were no longer just chasing symbols. They would follow a name, the Queen below. They had read it once, days before, in a ledger bound in stitched skin. Its ink still wet despite its age. A warning, not a title. She is not dead. She is only waiting. The tunnel ended in a vast chamber. Circa its domed ceiling lost in shadow. In the center, a pool perfectly still. Black as ink, though no reflection stirred on its surface. Around it, sitting thrones, stone, massive, empty. Mary stepped back. This is a throne room, it whispered. But whose? From the pool came a hum. It was not sound, it was memory. Images filled Vic's mind. A woman crowned in anthers and ash, her gaze like nightfall, cities kneeling, stars vanishing, a pack sealed in blood, and stood. A younger king, Vic's face not Vic's eyes, lowering a blade into a pool as she descended beneath it, smiling. Then the hum stopped. A single ripple danced across the pool's surface. The air grew thick. The torches steamed to blue flame. And she rose, not from water, not from shadow, but from within, as though the room itself breathed her back into shape. She was tall, pale, and dropped into rose, spun from thread, finer than mists. Her crown was made of roots and bone. Her eyes, if they were eyes, held entire histories, endless and unreadable. Mary fell to her knees. Vic stood. The queen below turned her head slowly toward him. You have opened the path. Her voice was wind in catacombs. It echoed not in the room, but in bone. It didn't mean to Vic said. No one ever does, but blood remembers, and your blood has returned to me. She stepped toward him, not walking, gliding. I'm not yours, Vic said, though the words came out quiet. A king crowned above, and yet you wear my mask. What are you? He asked. She smiled. Once I ruled what the daylight could not. Well, men fought wars over thrones of wood and iron. I ruled the silence, the dark between heartbeats, the pause between law and power. They feared me, so they buried me. Vic felt the disc again. Though it no longer existed, he felt it in his ribs, his breath. But now, she said, extended one pale hand, you are here, and I have waited for you, Victor. The crown above, the crown below, together. Vic took a step back. I won't be part of this. You already are. Behind him, one of the setting throne cracks just lightly. dust fell. A breath escaped from the stone. Mary whispered, "Vic, you need to go." The queen below tilted her head, watching him. A lion might study a coup. Go, then you are free. For now. But remember this. You sit in my shadow, and the shadow is growing. The dawn never came. At first, it was just clouds, then silence. No bird song, no hum of early traffic, no wind. Then the light simply stopped. Not darkness exactly, not night, but the world paused in a dim gray our land refused to shift, as though the sun had become certain of its place. Vic stood at the window of Buckingham Palace, watching the blank sky. Across the city, lights had come on. People were waking to something they could not name. She's brushed something. Mary said from the doorway, not fully, but enough. They turned. The queen below? Mary nodded. She was never meant to speak to a crowd. Sorry again. There was the condition of the seal. There was the barging. But now, she knows my name, Vic said. And the city knows her, Mary added. Not in words, but in the bones, in the water, in the sky. A knock at the door. It was Lord Ashcroft, leader of the Shire Parliament. He entered without waiting. We must act, he said, not even bothering with deference. There is sinning. Symbols are activating across London. Look. He dropped a folder of photographs on the table. Vic lived through them. Carvings appearing on simple stone. Mirrored shape in the window of the National Gallery. A lion weeping black teeth outside of the British Museum. And on the pavement before Parliament. The same glyph that had marked the gate below. She's calling her court, Mary whispered. No, said Ashford. She's declaring war. Lee looks up. You think this is her siege? He asked. Ashford hesitated. It's not hers. Not entirely. Something stirs in her throne. Something older. She may have been queen, but she was first. Vic stood and jaw clenched. Then why call it the Siege of Light? Mary answered softly. Because the last time this happened, they tried to burn her out with sunlight. They sealed her throne with stone and flooded the tunnels with holy fire. The city almost didn't survive. Ashwolf stared forward, voice sharp. You crown under ancient right. You carry the twine. You carry the twin bloodlines. The dead-born kings and the shadow queens. You are the hind, and now, Victor, you must decide what opens. Outside, lightning cried with thunder. For a moment, Every lamp in the palace flickered and went dark. In the reflection on the window, Dick saw himself, and behind him, just for a heartbeat, her, eyes like a dying star, a crown of roots, waiting. He looked to Ashcroft. You said you had a weapon. Ashcroft nodded gravely. It's not the weapon, it's a mirror. Mary frowned. A what? Forging the time of a certain sovereign, it reflects not what stands before it, but what is most fair. Show her the mirror, and you show her the face of her jailer. Vic stepped forward, then blinked. Ashford hesitated. You'd stand for her again? They turned toward the window, his voice low and certain. She stood beneath his kingdom for 7 years. As times someone looked her in the eye. At far below London, in the chamber of stone and blood, the Queen below lifted her face to the ceiling and smiled. The council chamber smelled of ink, dust, and nerves. No sunlight filtered through the tall windows. Only less strange grey lights let her blanketed the city since the gate below had stirred. The grey brass chandelier overhead hung unlit. Even the flames seemed cautious. In this hour, Vic sat at the head of the oval table, flanked by ministers who had sworn oaths older than their offices. Their expressions were carefully measured, too careful. Mary stood behind him, silent, arms crossed. He had warned him, not of ghosts or monsters, but of men. Lord Ashcroft entered last, his face unreadable. He placed a slim back folder on the table and slid it across to Vic. Vic opened it. Inside, a transcript. The partial one, coded language, intercepted communications. But the meaning was clear. Operation Albion reserved. Mary leaned forward to read. Her breast caught. They planned to dispose you, she said. Vic's voice was ice. Before the creation? No, said Oxshott. Ashford. Yesterday. No, said Ashford. Yesterday. He looked off slowly at the gallant ministers. Well, I was below. Lady Perrault, Home Secretary, cleared her throat. Your Majesty, it was not treason. Vic's chair scrubbed as he stood. Do not insult the crown and the throne with that word. It was exactly treason. We feared the one you were becoming, Perrault said, or what you were waking. The Queen below is not just myth. The storms, the symbols, the shifting of time. This is not a game, and neither is a monarchy bound to powers that predate civilization. Ashford stepped in, calm. They met in secret, discussed emergency protocols. A shadow reaches. Who would wear the crown? They asked. Silence. He turned to Mary. You knew. She met his gaze without flinching. I suspected, but you needed to see it. Throats straightened. This kingdom has survived mad kings, foreign queens, and world wars. We cannot survive a sovereign who listens to your voice in the dark. Vic stepped around the table slowly. His boots echoed on the marble. You fear the dark, he said, but you don't understand it. You don't see what's coming. You don't see what's coming. She is rising, not because I let her, but because we forget. We forgot. Because we buried her, and Mary cannot be buried forever. They stopped before the brave portrait of Queen Anne on the far wall, serene, aloof, and noble. Your Majesty, said another voice, Lord Everett, head of foreign intelligence. There's more. A French embassy has moved all stuff south. The Irish ambassador is missing. The Queenbillow's name was carved into the altar at Canterbury Castle. Victor. The siege is already here, he said, and you plot to change kings in the middle of it. Mary stepped forward. Now, you don't understand what he's protecting you from. None of you do. Ashcroft placed a silver ring on the table. There were still lower houses and ancient textures. But you must move quickly. We looked at him, then make them swear. Everyone aflame by blood and limb. Ashcroft nodded. Fixed voice, when he came again, was not just his own. It was cold order. Any who do not swear will be conceded. Forfeit. There's no longer politics. He turned, walking out, clock swirling behind him. This is war. The summons came at midnight, not by post, not by phone, but in the tolling of a bell that only those of royal blood could hear. They had been dreaming of fire and frost. The city turned to glass, and awoke with the echo still vibrating in his chest. He sat up, the seal on the inside of his wrist, left by the mirror crown, was glowing faintly. Mary was already at the door, pale and wide-eyed. You hear it? He nodded. Then it's time, she said. They're calling the trial. Dick dressed in silence, not in robes or regalia, but in black, coat, boots, gloves, the clothing of one being judged. Not crowned. Mary wore a blade at her side, iron-wrapped, hilt, etched with runes from before the conquest. You don't have to come, Vic said quietly. I do, he replied. They'll weigh your choices, but they'll also weigh your companions. Outside the city slept uneasily beneath a ceiling of low clouds and electric hum. Vic's escort was not soldiers or guards. but 6 figures in silver masks, their eyes covered, mouths stitched shut. They said nothing, they simply walked. Down Whitehall, past Westminster, past the Abbey, into the old crypts beneath the chapter house, where no king has set foot in 700 years. At the bottom of the stairs, Vic saw them. 12 thrones, 12 judges, clothed in grey, their faces hidden, their voices echoes of past rulers. Their presence was not entirely human. The council of kings, not the crowns, the chosen. Those who had passed this trial before him all failed, is, and been erased. A voice deep and distant filled the chamber. You who wore the blood of Albion, who stand astride the walking and the buried world, speak your name. Vic Alexander Leon, he said, crowned King of England and sovereign of the Northern Flame. The flame in the center of the room flared. Do you submit to judgment? I do. The floor shifted, stone uncoiled beneath him, forming a circle inscribed with burning script. The trial had begun. One of the judges stood, a woman, her crown melted and reforged, her eyes stars behind the veil. Victor Leon, do you rule in service or in hunger? I serve, he said, but I will not kneel to the past. That is not the question, he said. She said. Another judge rose. His voice was fire and iron. You have awoken the queen below. Why? She was never sleeping, Rick answered. Only denied, forgotten. And when we forget what we bury, it rises in a wrong shape. A third judge, younger, eyes flickering like candlelight. Would you wear both crowns? Day and shadow? I will rule what the land demands, Vic said. If I must be 2 kings to keep the kingdom, so be it. Silence. The flame grew dim. Then, show us, they said. Not with words, with memory. And Vic fell, not physically, but inward, down into his own mind, into his line. He saw kings before him, mad, noble, treacherous. One who tore his crown apart to save his people. One who burned forests to keep the throne. And one who wore the same face as him, standing beneath the mountain, kneeling before the queen below, hand outstretched, a pact, a prize. They turned to the chamber, gasping. The judges were all standing now. You are the first to speak the whole truth, said the melted crown queen. And so the choice is yours. Choices? Vic asked. 2 crowns, 1 kingdom. Choose which to break. Mary stepped forward. What if he refuses? The youngest judge replied almost kindly. Then both will shatter. And the room is done. We look at the fire, at his hands, at Mary, and finally at the memory of himself, knowing once long ago. I will break the crown above, he whispered, and carried the shadow. A long silence. Then all 12 bowed. And in the dark, the true crown appeared. Not gold, not silver, but bone and light. And we took it. The sky cracked as stone, not with thunder, but the light. Not sunshine, not fire, but a being that split the heavens like a sword. It came not from the sun, but from a point above Westminster Abbey, piercing straight downward into the heart of London, where the 2 crowns had once lied for dominion. They stood at the center of the abbey floor, barefoot, unarmed, uncrowned. His shadow stretched long behind him, forks uncertain. The mirror crown lay shuttered at his feet. The crown below paused faintly on his brow, an echo, not an object. It glimmered with roots of thought and memory. It weighed less than metal and heavier than history. All around him, the city held its breath. Outside the abbey, crowds had gathered, drawn by dreams and silence. Some whispered his name, others chanted prayers they didn't remember learning, and all looked up at the impossible being of light that split the morning in two. Mary approached through the nave, her coat scorched from the fires burning Suffolk. They're they're calling it the cleaving star. Vic didn't look away from the beam. It's not a star. No, she said. It's her. The queen below had risen. But not in form, not in war, in presence. And they had met her not with sword or spell, but with surrender. It had broken the upper crown, cast off the ancient line of daylight dominion, and accepted the lineage older than stone. He had chosen not to rule, but to bind. The light began to move, slower than thought, but faster than time. It spread from the abbey across the Thames, tracing old ley lines buried beneath London's skin. Bridges shimmered, trees boomed pale gold, clocked towers stilled, and one by one, the ancient anchors, the sails placed by kings long dead, began to hum. Mary looked up, blinking against the radiance. You gave her everything. No, Vic said. I gave her what she was owed. He ended the crumb. Vic turned to her, eyes glowed faintly. No, I forged it. There was silence, low and bone deep. The tolling of a bell. No one had heard silence before the abbey had tolled. Not Pippin, but something beneath it. Something older. The crowd outside still fell silent. A figure stepped into the light. Not the queen below, not the 13th sovereign, not even a ghost. It was Vic, older or younger, or neither. A king-shaped egg, wearing both crowns, made entirely the light and shadow. Mary stepped back. What's that? Vic exhaled. Vic exhaled. The future, or the judgment of it. The echo raised its hand, and for a moment, everything, sky, stone, soul, shivered. The being collapsed. A single pulse of warmth flooded out in all directions. London lit up. Not with electricity, but memory. People fell to their knees in alive ways. Others wept in train stations. A thousand forgotten things returned. Old names, old gods, old griefs. And yet, no terror, no strings, just light. Over Westminster, over England, over the soul of a boy who had walked the bridge and found out power. But purpose. Vic turned to Vic. Vic turned to Mary. It's done. She nodded. Until it begins again. The stones beneath stand dunstan in the east breast. Not literally, but in the aftermath of the clearing light. The ruins long overtaken by ivy and ash trees filled awake. The very earth beneath London had shifted, and where walls had once kept silence, now vines whispered words not heard in centuries. They stepped through the archway alone. He was no longer dressed as a king, nor as a boy, but something new. A coat stitched with root sigil thread, growths made from bark that had never known daylight, boot inked with the gleam of the mirror road. The queen below was waiting, not in shape, but in impression. She was a distortion in the air, a crownless shimmer, the suggestion of a woman made of centuries and sorrow. Mary waited at the edge of the circle. She could not enter, not yet, not until the pack was done. Vic knelt. I'm not your hair, he said. The air responded in a voice that was wind, water, and the cry of gulls circling over the Thames. No, you are my equal. He nodded. You ruled below, I rule above. Now we rule together. But there must be boundaries. A flick of approval rippled across the stone. Then will rest his hands, palms open, as if weighing an invisible scale. I will not deny the dog, he said, but I will not let it consume light. The realm of memory should not replace the present, nor should the present erase the past. We will keep the balance. He held, I will remember. The wind stilled. Then, and what will you give? Mixed. My name, my shape, my soul, if needed. But not the people. Never the people. This pact is between stories, not subjects. Silence. Then the queen spoke again, fully, this time. Her voice took form, peeling away from the vines, the ruins, the roots. Then you're wiser than your fathers. From the ground, a blade rose. Not steel, not shadow, something between. They took it, and as his fingers closed around the hilt, a pause passed through London, like final notes resolving after a long, unfinished court. Mary stepped into the circle. You're bound now, she said quietly. They looked at the blade. So is she? From the north, a great silence spread. The Tower of London stopped ticking. The British Museum's deepest vault unlocked. Graves whispered. Bells rang. In no human tone. Vic turned to Mary. Now we bind the world. It rained on Coronation Day, not the hard, spiteful rain of Leonard's late autumns, but a soft, misting veil as though the sky itself had paused in reflection. The light, when it came, was indirect, filtered through clouds the color of warm vellum. Vic stood alone for a moment beneath the great oak of Greenwich Park. The ceremony would begin within an hour. Processions were forming. Foreign dignitaries had already filled the abbey. The world expected tradition. But tradition no longer ruled. He wore no golden circle, no crimson robe. His crown was unseen, etched instead in the slight glow behind his eyes. The way the air quieted when he passed. The Queenbell's mark had settled beneath his skin like ink soaked into parchment. I don't feel like a king, he murmured. Mary, who had joined him without sound, gave a soft smile. Good, she said. That means you're ready. Let's do it together. Watching the fog roll over the river. Somewhere, a distant chorus of bells rang in minor third, a custom older than the abbey itself, newly restored. Vic turned to her. You don't regret following me, then? Mary looked out across the water. I followed you because you were foolish. I stayed because you became wise. He chuckled softly. You think the people will accept this new thing? Mary tilted her head. Some will, some won't. But the land has already made this decision. Behind them, the procession stood, but they held back. He walked instead to the edge of the hill where the whole of London unfolded below him. Bridges, towers, domes, everything touched by the cleaving light still held a slightest shimmer, as if the world had been rethreaded with something finer. And maybe it had, for beneath the city now ran more than transcend was. It ran memory, it ran binding, it ran the will of a boy who had once walked alone across Westminster Bridge, unsure of who he was, uncertain whether he was meant to rule. Now he no longer doubted, not because he was certain, but because he understood that certainty was the first lie of power. He turned at last and walked down the path to the Abbey. To the people, to the world, to the moment where the myth ended. And the king began. Thanks for your watching and following. Cheers.